Now, therefore, in accordance with the provisions of Article 113 of the Constitution and Standing Order 154B of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby convey the said decision to the National Assembly to the Senate. Honorable Senators, as you may be aware, yesterday, Wednesday, 21st February 2024, during the afternoon sitting, the co-chairperson of the Mediation Committee, Senator Dr. Boni Halwale, MP, gave notice of a motion for the approval of the mediated version of the said bill. The motion has been listed on today's order paper for consideration. I thank you. Honorable Senators, you may walk in and take your seats. Honorable Senators, I have another message to pass. I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 46, 3 and 4, I received the following message from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding the passage by the National Assembly of the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023. The message dated Thursday, 22nd of February 2024 was received in the office of the Clerk of the Senate on the same date. Pursuant to the said standing order, I now proceed to report the message. Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 41.1 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby convey the following message from the National Assembly. Whereas the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023, was published via Kenya Gazette Supplement number 236 of 4th December 2023 and introduced pursuant to Article 109(4) of the Constitution as a bill seeking to provide a legal framework for development and access to affordable housing and institutional housing, and to give effect to Article 43(1)(b) of the Constitution on the right to accessible and adequate housing. And whereas the National Assembly considered the bill and passed it with amendments on Wednesday, 21st February 2024 in the form attached herewith. Now, therefore, in accordance with the provisions of Article 110(4) of the Constitution, I hereby refer the bill to the Senate for consideration. Now, Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 163, which requires that a bill which originates in the National Assembly be proceeded with the Senate in the manner as the bill introduced in the Senate by way of first reading in accordance with Standing Order number 144, I will direct the clerk to call out Order number 8 on today's supplementary order paper and read a first time the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023. I thank you. Next order, clerk.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, the 22nd of February, 2024. 1. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Executive of Tharaka Nithi for the year ended 30th June, 2023. 2. Report of the Auditor General of the financial statement of the County of Tharaka Nithi for the year ended 2023. 3. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Tharaka Nithi County Assembly Car Loan and Mortgage Fund for the year ended 30th June 2023. 4. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Tharaka Nithi County Emergency Fund for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Tharaka Nithi County Youth Empowerment Fund for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Tharaka Nithi Bursary Development Fund for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the AG, Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Government of Tharaka Nithi County Revenue Fund for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Executive of West Pokot for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Assembly of West Pokot for the year ended 30th June 2023. Oops, it's quite a long one. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Government of West Pokot, receiver of revenue for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the West Pokot County Cooperative Development Fund for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Government of Nyandarua County Revenue Fund for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Nyandarua County Executive State and Public Officers Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme Fund for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Executive of Meru for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Assembly of Meru for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Meru County Revenue Board for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Meru County Investments and Development Corporation for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of the County Government of Meru County Revenue Fund for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Meru County Microfinance Corporation for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Meru County Alcoholic Drinks Board for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Government of Meru, receiver of revenue statements for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Executive of Turkana County for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the financial statements of the County Assembly of Turkana ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Executive of Kirinyaga for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Government of Kirinyaga County Revenue Fund for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of the Kirinyaga County Assembly Car Loan Fund for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Executive of Embu for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Assembly of Embu for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Government of Embu County Revenue Fund for the year ended 30th June 2023. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Government of Muranga, receiver of revenue, year ended 30th June 2023. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Sotsi.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that the Senate adopts the reports of the Select Committee on the County Public Investments and Special Funds on the consideration of the audit reports for the year ended 30th June 2019, 30th June 2020, and 30th June 2021 of the following water service providers. Number 1, Amazi Water Services Company Limited for Vihiga County. Number 2, Bomet Water Company Limited for Bomet County. Number 3, Gusi Water and Sanitation Company Limited for Kisii, Nyamira counties. Number 4, Kisumu Water and Sanitation Company Limited for Kisumu County. Number 5, Kwale Water and Sewerage Company Limited for Kwale County. And number 6, Nyeri Water and Sanitation Company Limited for Nyeri County. And the audit reports of the Wajir Water and Sewerage Company Limited for the year ended 30th June 2021 laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 23rd November 2023. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Boni. Just hold on, Senator Boni. Just hold on. Just proceed to call the next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Senator Fernandi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Request for statement on the police raid on businesses in Isli over counterfeit products. Mr. Speaker, sir, I raise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism regarding the police raid on businesses in Isli, Nairobi County over counterfeit products. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should, 1, explain the circumstances that led to the raid by the police on the businesses in Isli, occasioning a confrontation with the local business community, causing a loss of business and damage to property. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, sir, explain whether the multi-agency operation, which was conducted in private businesses and homesteads, was done in compliance with the law, specifically whether the multi-agency team had obtained warrants or court orders to conduct the raid in Isli. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, sir, provide current list of all licensed importers of powdered milk, indicating their compliance levels and outlining any identified leakages that necessitate such enforcement operations. Mr. Speaker, sir, number 4, state specific measurements implemented by Kenya Revenue Authority, KRA, Kenya Bureau of Standards, KEBS, and the Kenya Dairy Board to ensure imported goods are compliant with the requisite standards at the ports of entry. And finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, provide a comprehensive report detailing the actions taken against responsible multi-agency officers who failed to act professionally during the raid in Isli, Nairobi County. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Joseph Kamau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transport and Housing regarding the provision of National Transport and Safety Authority, NTSA, services to the Huduma Center in Lamu County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, explain why the NTSA desk at the Huduma Center in Lamu County is not staffed. Number 2, provide specific timelines for the operationalization of the NTSA desk at the Lamu Huduma Center. And number 3, state the interim measures put in place to ensure residents of Lamu County access NTSA services within the county. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wakili Hillary.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. There is a request for a statement on the status and welfare of early childhood development education teachers in Bomet County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to the Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the welfare and the status of early childhood development education ECDE teachers in Bomet County. In the statement, the committee should state actions that have been taken by Bomet County to address the prolonged contractual status, non-payment and underpayment of salaries for ECT teachers. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, appraise the Senate on whether the scheme of service for ECD teachers exists in Bomet County, stating the steps being taken to ensure continuous professionalism development of ECD teachers and adequate educational facilities for ECD centers. Thirdly, Honorable Speaker, is to provide the distribution of ECD centers across the county, stating the measures undertaken by the Bomet County in addressing the needs of children with disabilities within the ECD framework, ensuring their placement in appropriate institution. And lastly, state long-term intervention being considered by the county government to address salaries, discrepancies, and the improvement of ECD infrastructure and the resources. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order number 7B will be handled later. We'll straight away move to order number 8. Clerk, kindly call the order.
Order number 8, the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bills number 75 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to give effect to Article 43 1B of the Constitution, to provide a framework for development and access to affordable housing and institutional housing and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 9, motion, report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, National Assembly Bills number 23 of 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to move the following motion. Being the motion on the mediated version of the county government's additional allocations, National Assembly Bill number 23 of the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the county government's additional allocations bill, National Assembly Bill number 23 of 2023, which was published on 24th of May 2023. The National Assembly considered and passed this bill on the 25th of June 2023, and consequently, in accordance with Article 110(4) of this Constitution, the bill was referred to this Senate for concurrence. The overall objective of the bill is to provide additional allocations to counties from the national government's share of revenue pursuant to Article 190 and Article 202(2) of the Constitution. Further, Mr. Speaker, the bill provides for additional allocations from loans and grants from development partners. The bill for the financial year 2023-24 comprises the following additions, Mr. Speaker. 1. Allocations to counties from the national government's share of revenue. B. Additional allocations to the county governments from court fines and mineral royalties. 3. Conditional allocations from proceeds of loans and grants from development partners. And finally, 4. The national government's expenditures on devolved functions to be converted to additional conditional grants to the county governments. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Senate reviewed the bill and passed it with various amendments that were communicated back to the National Assembly on the 26th of October 2023. Some of the Senate amendments were inclusion of the additional conditional allocation of 424.6 million meant for the transfer of library services, and inclusion of additional conditional allocations financed by a grant from the Javan Development Bank, KFW, to finance the locally led Climate Action Program, FLOCA, County Climate Resilience Grant amounting to 1.2 billion. Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly considered the Senate amendments to the bill and rejected them. It is in this regard that the bill was committed to a mediation commitment committee in accordance with Article 113 of the Constitution. The National Assembly Speaker, in accordance with the provisions of the standing orders, appointed the following members to the mediation committee, namely Honorable Dindi Nyoro, Honorable G.K. Kariuki, Honorable Mary Amase, Honorable Antonio Luoch, Honorable Catherine Omanyo, Honorable Joshua Kimilu, and Honorable Kipchumba Toroitich. And on the part of the Senate, the following were appointed: myself as the team leader, Shakil Abdallah Mohammed, Veronica Waheti Maina, Esther Anyeni Okenyeri, Senator Lengu Oleseki, Eddie Kasheru, and Betty Baturi Motet. However, Mr. Speaker, the mandate of the Mediation Committee is set out in Articles 112 and 13 of the Constitution of Kenya, Standing Order number 149, and in the National Assembly Standing Orders, Standing Order number 166 of the Senate Standing Orders. The scope of the committee's mandate, Mr. Speaker, is to consider bills where the houses do not agree on all or any of the recommendations made by either house, to attempt to develop a version of a bill that both houses will pass. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee held 2 sittings to deliberate on this matter. Senator Khalwale, CBS MP, and Honorable Dindi Nyoro, CBS MP, were elected as co-chairs of the committee pursuant to Standing Order number 166(4) of the Standing Orders of the Senate and 149(4) of the Standing Orders of the National Assembly. The committee received a submission from the National Treasury Economic Planning. The submission is attached to the report tabled in this House. Mr. Speaker, while considering the bill, the committee's attention was drawn to the supplementary estimates 1 for the financial year 2023-24 approved in November 2023, which led to a number of changes in the budget outlay of the national government. The changes, Mr. Speaker, substantially altered the resources to be dispersed to counties as additional allocations. The affected items included, Mr. Speaker, 1, conditional allocation towards the leasing of medical equipment. This was revised to 0 from the initial 5.862 billion. Conditional allocation for aggregated industrial parks, this was reduced by 200 million from 4.7 billion to 4.5 billion. And finally, the conditional allocation from the proceeds of loans and grants from development partners, some had increment while others had reductions. Upon deliberations, the committee considered the contentious issues and, in accordance with Article number 113 of the Constitution, developed an agreed version of the bill. This agreed version of the bill, Mr. Speaker, took into account the following recommendations. 1, insertion of a new clause 55E to provide for additional conditional allocations of the transferred library services amounting to 162.85 million. This amount will be allocated to counties which had a shortfall upon receiving the allocation which was included in the equitable share. And 2, the committee noted that though the framework of disbursement of mineral royalties to the beneficiary counties was yet to be finalized and approved, the unconditional allocation of mineral royalties should be retained in a bill as it is an entitlement to beneficiary counties under Section 183, 5B of the Mining Act of 2016. And finally, 3, additional allocations on leasing of medical equipment. The committee noted that there are many challenges experienced in implementing this project, such as lack of specialized personnel and the necessary infrastructure to absorb the equipment in some counties. Therefore, the committee resolved that the allocation for leasing medical equipment amounting to 5.862 billion be deleted. Number 4, variations in loans and grants from development partners. Financing locally led climate action, also known as FLOCA. The committee concurred with the recommendations of the National Treasury to increase conditional allocations relating to climate change response to form the 4.9 billion to 7.9 from 4.9 billion to 7.9 billion. Further that the increase in this allocation be reflected in the national government supplementary estimate 2 for the financial year 2023-2024. These additional resources comprise of the following, Mr. Speaker: A, FLOCA, component amounting to 517 million, and B, another FLOCA component amounting to 6.2 billion, and another FLOCA component amounting to 1.2 billion. Under clause 5.9, the committee recommended an amendment to ensure that all additional allocations to county governments, except the unconditional allocations from county fines and fees under clause 5.2 of the bill, be transferred to the respective county revenue fund accounts by the implementing ministries, departments, and agencies. The National Treasury shall therefore disperse allocations from court fines and fees directly to these counties. Intergovernmental agreements under section 191A to 191E of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, the committee observed that the National Treasury and the Council of Governors had requested for exemption from the requirements of section 191A to 191E of the PFM Act 2012 on the intergovernmental agreements. The committee noted that both levels had demonstrated deliberate effort to finalize the model. Yes, most obliged. To give the senator of Nyandarua is very happy. I think
Just proceed, Senator Boni, please.
it's because of his beard, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, the mediation committee appreciates the offices of speakers and clerks of the assembly of the two houses for the support. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I implore upon this house to consider this report, to table this house and mediate version of the bill attached to the report and support this motion. Approval of this mediated version of the bill will ensure that our counties will receive an additional amount, approximately 46.36 billion shillings, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move and request Senator Tabitha Mutinda to second. Senator Tabitha. Nominated Senator Elias Nairobi, Elias Embu, Elias Kambu.
Thank you, Government Whip, Senator Boni. And I rise, Mr. Speaker, to second this report. I'm very obliged to second, and I want to start seconding by very much appreciating the members of the committee who took their time, especially, of course, from the Senate side that have been mentioned, of course, by the leader of the team, who's Senator Boni, AC, Veronica, Shakila, Lenku, Eddie, Senator Montet. We are so grateful. And we are so grateful because our mandate as Senate, Mr. Speaker, apart from oversight, representation, and the legislation, you realize that we fight that counties get more funding. From where I sit as the Vice Chair of Finance, these are deliberations that each and every year we continue focusing on the issues of CARA, on the issues of DORA, and looking at the mediation process, because this is a bill as finance team that we had already processed. But of course we had some hitches, but I'm very happy that there was positive conclusion, also with the leadership of the National Assembly led by none other than Didi Nyoro, Mr. Speaker. I want to state that looking at the subject that we're going to be having in terms of the equitable share, that we focus, of course, on increasing, the issue of the medical equipments, Mr. Speaker, we had looked at it and then you realize, even you having been a governor for the last 10 years, paying medical equipments whereby they are not to the standards, then it becomes an unnecessary cost. But I'm happy because now that cost has been removed from 5.8 billion to 0. That is an excellent from the team, and it is funds that of course can be rediverted. The issue of the industrial park, which currently now stands at 4.5 billion. Definitely with our manifesto, as we have always mentioned, the industrial park is very key to each and every county. Of course, economic empowerment and other developments that come with it. It's an achievement both for the counties and both for the national level, because in this, then we are able to...
Honorable Senators, kindly, you may consult, yes, but do it in a manner that you don't disrupt business of the House. Proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The other issue that has come, has been on serious discussions in our committee, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of the library funds amounting to none other than 425 million for the 33 counties, Mr. Speaker. This is money that Treasury has been lagging behind in ensuring that counties get this money. Putting in mind that before the devolved government came in place, we've had staff in the different libraries in the different counties. And without them getting these funds, then it also delays in terms of their administrations and their cost, recurrent costs that should be in place. So I'm happy if this also issue has been sorted in terms of the libraries amount, 425 for the 33 counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as a committee of finance, we also tackle loans and grants, and especially grants. And I'm happy that the issue of the grants, some have of course increased as we've seen, some have also reduced. But why the reduction and why the increments? It also depends with what the governors are using the money for. Is it value for the money from what the donors are giving? And I want to urge my colleague senators, especially the elected 47 senators who have had the privilege to receive the oversight fund, to be able to ensure, as we fight as Senate and as a Committee of Finance, to ensure that we give these monies to the county. The money that you have received for oversight, try and assist us as finance before the matters come to CPIC, before the matters come to PAC committees, that you are able to ensure you oversight and ensure that these funds are able to ensure the local mwananchi as required. Finally, on the issue of the minerals, is something that we've also been able to discuss, and I'm happy that it's been positively concluded, the court fines issue. The exciting issue actually, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude very fast, is on the issue of the monies for the climate change from FLOCA. The President is very, very focused on the issue of the climate change. He's leading this conversation. And I want to state that the counties, Mr. Speaker, in these sums of money that we've seen, we have the 517 million from the county climate institutional support. We also have the 6.2 billion. We have 1.2 billion. My colleague senators, it is wise to know from the Committee of Finance that there are so many funds that are going to the counties. And I want to urge you to kindly ensure that total oversight is done for our people to benefit from the devolved government, Mr. Speaker. With those few and many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I do support.
You second or you support? Which is...
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I do second.
Thank you. Thank you. Order, honorable senators. Honorable senators, I will now proceed to propose the question, which is that the Senate adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, National Assembly Bills number 23 of 2023, laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 21st February 2024. Afternoon sitting, and pursuant to Article 113 of the Constitution and Standing Order 167.3, approve the mediated version of the County Government's Additional Locations Bill, National Assembly Bill number 23 of 2023. Now, honorable senators, the floor is open for intervention from amongst you. However, I would just want to make this, or to remind you that you debated this bill. So if indeed it is the mood of the House that I proceed to put the question, I'd be much obliged to do so. So do we have that consensus? Yes. Thank you. Senator Mogeni, do you want me to put the question, this to a vote? Do you have something to say, Senator?
Mr. Speaker, I don't want to irritate my colleagues. I've read the mood of the House. You can put the question.
So, honorable senators, now it is my determination pursuant to Standing Order 84-1 that indeed this matter affects counties, and therefore voting shall be by delegations. Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the deficient bell for 2 minutes. I have said 2 minutes. Sergeant at Arms, kindly proceed to close the door and draw the bar. Senator Bass, kindly take your seat. Kindly. Now, honorable senators, I will proceed to put the question, which is that the Senate adopt the report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, National Assembly Bills number 23 of 2023, laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 21st February 2024 afternoon sitting. And pursuant to Article 113 of the Constitution and Standing Order 167.3, approve the mediated version of the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, National Assembly Bills number 23 of 2023. Now, honorable senators, voting shall be electronically, and therefore at this juncture kindly log out. Log out. As the honorable senators log out, Sergeant at Arms, go around and pick any card that is remaining logged in the delegates unit. Once you're done doing that, Sergeant at Arms, kindly let me know so that we proceed to the next step. Sergeant at Arms, are we? Senator Boni, you ought to be seated down when the chair is absent. Sergeant at Arms, we're good to go? Honorable senators, kindly log back. Clerk, are we ready with the system? So log back and proceed with the voting, either by pressing yes, no, or abstain. Proceed. Honorable Senators, the results of the division are as follows. Ayes 26 votes, nays 0, abstention 0. So the ayes have it. Clerk, we shall now resume by taking order number 7B. Sergeant at Arms, kindly withdraw the bar and open the doors. Majority Leader, you may take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 57-1 to present to the Senate the business of the House for the week commencing Tuesday, the 27th of February, 2024. During the morning sittings on Wednesday, 21st February, 2024, the Senate considered and passed 7 bills. Mr. Speaker, I think that is a record. I don't recall a time before where in one sitting we have succeeded to pass 7 bills in one sitting. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, from the bottom of my heart, allow me to appreciate colleague senators for that stellar performance this week on Wednesday. We passed the County Licensing Uniform Procedures Bill, a very important bill that provides for the uniform application of licensing procedures in all our 47 counties, and you understand the difficulties that have been existing. The County Agricultural Livestock Extension Services Bill, very important bill for our farmers, and that colleagues passed. The Manx Bill, Startup Bill, Persons with Disability Bill, Kenya Sign Language Bill, and equally important, the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill. 7 bills that colleagues have passed. The bills now have been referred to the National Assembly for consideration. I take this opportunity to commend honorable senators for their zeal and dedication in the presence of the chamber for the voting process, and urge all of us to carry on with the same spirit during this particular session. Mr. Speaker, sir, there are currently 33 bills at the second reading stage and 4 at the committee of the whole stage. These bills will be scheduled in the order paper and programs for the business of the coming week. I urge honorable senators to please familiarize themselves with this, with the order paper for every sitting day, to take interest in the coming business as indicated in the notice paper, and to avail themselves in the chamber to contribute meaningfully to debates. I cannot overemphasize on the needs for the movers to avail themselves in the chamber to prosecute business. This is a worrying trend, Mr. Speaker, which I believe we need to address. You find a senator has a bill, it's on the order paper, but they cannot be found to move. That's an unfortunate occurrence, Mr. Speaker, and I hope our colleagues who have various bills that are in various stages make sure that you're present in the House for consideration of those particular bills. I also reiterate, Mr. Speaker, on the importance for senators to get the order paper way in advance. I must commend the office of the clerk. We get the order paper every evening before the sittings, and sometimes even a day or two earlier. And you're able to tell what business is before the House. The SBC meets more than a week in advance. They prepare the legislative business, and therefore, there is no excuse, Mr. Speaker, for senators not to contribute meaningfully, Mr. Speaker, not just to rise and respond based on rumors, Mr. Speaker. This, by the time we are 1.5 years into your term, Mr. Speaker, I expect to see colleagues with Senate colleagues, Mr. Speaker, with notes that they have prepared prior to coming to debate in this House, with factual findings about why they agree or disagree with certain provisions that are in a particular bill, Mr. Speaker. The business of just casually walking into the chamber one afternoon, then listening to sometimes information or misinformation that has been peddled out there about a bill and reacting to it, Mr. Speaker, should be a thing of the past. It is important, Mr. Speaker, that all our debates in the House be informed by fact, either in support or in opposition. It doesn't matter, but convince us with sound logic, Mr. Speaker, on that particular. There are 20 bills, Mr. Speaker, 20 petitions rather, my apologies, Mr. Speaker, that are due for reporting by the various respective standing committees. I continue to urge the standing committees to expedite consideration of these petitions and to table their reports thereon pursuant to Standing Order number 238-2. I wish to reiterate that the importance of petitions as a tool to facilitate our Kenyan people to exercise their rights under Article 37 and Article 119 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. With respect to statements, there are a total of 271 statements sought pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 and are pending conclusion. The standing orders with specific reference to the Standing Order 56-1 provides a mechanism for which committee chairpersons may appraise the House on matters for which the committee is responsible. Further, Standing Order number 56-1A AA provide for a mechanism for committees
Order,
to...
Senator Nyutu. You may sit next to the Senator from Nyandarua and consult in Lawton. Proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. I urge standing committees to make use of these provisions to update the House on the various business. Mr. Speaker, this is a call to our various chairpersons of the various committees to consider seriously the bills that are before them and to guide the House on what they are doing with those particular bills. Mr. Speaker, you'll recall that this week, for example, was very heated debate on the water amendment bill, only for the committee to later appear before the House with a report responding complete with amendments, Mr. Speaker, on the issues which senators had taken with the particular bill. If we had that report early in advance and members were appraised of all these particular issues, I want to believe that many of them would not have raised some of the issues that they have. Therefore, I wish to urge our committee chairpersons to endeavor to ensure that they provide reports to the House way in advance before a particular bill is considered, Mr. Speaker. This is a busy season for which I expect that all our members of the Senate shall be seated in their respective House committees, Mr. Speaker, so as to dispense of business quickly. At its meeting held on the Tuesday, the 20th of February 2024, the SBC noted apologies from the Cabinet Secretary scheduled to appear on the morning sitting of Wednesday 21st. To this end, the committee maintained the same set of questions scheduled for the day to appear in the order paper of the morning sitting of Wednesday the 28th. The summary of the questions and the Cabinet Secretary to appear on the day as follows. Question number 1 by Senator Professor Tom Odinga to the CS for Interior on the intercommunal clashes that occurred in Sondu town during the demonstrations in June and July 2023. Question number 2 by Senator Mwenda Gataya Mofaya to the Cabinet Secretary on the operationalization of Chiakariga sub-county in Tharaka Nithi County. Question number 3 by Senator Professor Tom Odinga to the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture on the theft of cane at way bridges while in transit to sugar factories. Question number 4 by Senator Professor Odinga to the CS for Agriculture on the appointment and dismissal of directors and managing directors and CEOs in state-owned sugar companies in Kenya. Last but not least is a question by Senator James Murango to the CS in charge of water, sanitation and irrigation on water projects budgeted by the national government in Kirinyaga County in financial year 2023-2024. Finally, on Tuesday the 27th, 2024, the SBC will consider and approve the business of the week. I thank you and hereby lay the statement on the table of the Senate today, Thursday the 22nd of February, 2024. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Before the clerk calls the next order, allow me to make the following communication. In the public gallery, we have 43 students, accompanied by 2 lecturers from the University of Embu, an environmental club, who are undertaking an education visit in the Senate. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I will allow the Senator for Embu, Senator Mundigi, under 1 minute, Senator, to extend words of welcome.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa ruhusa nikaribishe wanafunzi wa chuo kikuu ya Embu wakunje wajifunze. Sitaki kuongea mengi kwa sababu mmeona vile kulikuwa mko na bahati, mmekaa hapa karibu risali moja, kwa hivyo mmejifunza ya kutosha. Kwa hiyo namkaribisha. Nikimalizia nataka nimwambie Mkirundi ndio muwe senator wa kesho ama leaders wa kesho. Mambo ya pombe, dawa za kulevya, hizo zote mkiendelea nazo hamtaweza kukaa vizuri. Ya mwisho vile mmeona hapa ikiendelea, tuko hapa tuko kitu kimoja. Kuna senator walio wachache na walio wengi, lakini tuko kitu kimoja. Tukitoka huko nje ni mnaona kuna kuanga na sinda, lakini tuko kitu kimoja. Asanti. Mkirundi muende mpeane salamu ya senators wote kutoka Senate ya Kenya. Asanti Bwana Speaker.
Thank you. Next order, Clerk.
Order number 10, the Water Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 33 of 2023.
That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 11, the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 37 of 2023, second reading.
Senator Osotsi, you're the mover of this bill. You may now proceed to reply. There is no senator wishing to make any contributions. Okay. Senator Osotsi, just take your seat. Senator Cheriot, you queued after I made my communication. Anyway, proceed to make your contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You are right, and thank you for agreeing to indulge me. This is a very important bill which we should not allow to pass without giving our thoughts to it. A proposal by Senator Godfrey Osotsi, member for Vihiga, to amend the Powers and Privilege, Parliamentary Powers and Privilege Act, Mr. Speaker, to give effect to Article 125 of the Constitution by operationalizing the powers of arrest by Parliament, and Article 50 of the Constitution on the right to a fair hearing and connected purposes. Mr. Speaker, this is an important act of Parliament, which I want to agree, though I'll have certain thoughts which I think were Senator Osotsi. And this is something which Senator Cherargei, Senator Lelegwe, and I'm trying to see other jailbirds in the House, Mr. Speaker. I cannot notice jailbirds of the previous regime. People who have suffered the very, Mr. Speaker, inhumane and totally irresponsible acts of the excesses of the police, Mr. Speaker, as honorable members of Parliament. This is something for which I think we can easily cross ranks. A honorable member, Mr. Speaker, is not an ordinary citizen, not because you're elected, but because you speak on and on behalf and for behalf of other people, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, in going about your duties, many are the times for which you will be caught in certain situations for which, if it was upon your individual choice, Mr. Speaker, you may not have been there. But in your duties as you represent other people, there are places you'll have to go. There are things you'll have to say. You know, Mr. Speaker, there are people you'll have to rub the wrong way on behalf of the people that you speak for, Mr. Speaker. And that is not an easy exercise. And therefore, the casual nature with which I see members of Parliament many times just arrested, you know, from bars and I don't know what, dragged, as used to happen in the dreaded days of the handshake, Mr. Speaker, is something that we need to lay behind, so that members of Parliament, just like other ordinary citizens, can feel that they enjoy the very rights under our Constitution that we so proudly enjoy, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, this is an attempt to provide for clear channels of how members of Parliament specifically are treated during time when police, for one reason or the other, want to attract your attention. I have never understood, Mr. Speaker, why Subarus and Land Cruisers, Mr. Speaker, will be chasing a honorable member of parliament around town, trying to get their attention. Yet, you know, all it takes is just a phone call. If it is Senator Methu that you want, you just drop a phone call to him and say, you are needed at Dondori police station. You are wanted because there are sacks of potatoes that disappeared, and we think you may know a thing or two about them. Why do you have to come and embarrass him in this town, Mr. Speaker? Chase him around like a common criminal, somebody who represents millions of people, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I want to agree. There are not very many things that I agree with Senator Osotsi, but this, at least on that particular provision and to give right to Article 50, I must agree with him, Mr. Speaker, and urge colleagues that on this very important issue, let us close ranks. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the clerk, in fact, it provides for ways through which you can provide the sermon at any given time, because of our staffers and the records that are available in the precincts of Parliament, in whichever part of the world where we are in, Mr. Speaker. The office of the clerk is always aware where members are, be it that we are on recess, we are on holiday, or even in terms of session, such as now. Therefore, this provision to provide that the clerk shall cause summons to be served within 7 days of receipt of directives, such that when you are needed, it is important to inform, you know, the clerk and say, we need member XYZ, please tell him to appear before such and such a police station in a nice and decent way. And I expect, Senator Osotsi, that we don't stop at members of parliament alone. That needs to be the norm even for ordinary citizens, except for criminals who are on the run. There is no need, all this drama that we see many at the times about running around. You know, policemen sometimes, Mr. Speaker, are just excited about humiliating ordinary citizens, Mr. Speaker. And we need not stop at just members of parliament alone. There are people, many citizens, Mr. Speaker, who if invited to, they'll be willing to walk to a station and either record a statement or do whatever police are looking for them. That is part of the reform. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, when CS Kindiki comes to the House next week, these are part of the promises that we made even as an administration, that there needs to be decency even in how people are arrested, Mr. Speaker, be it for whatever crime that they have committed, Mr. Speaker. Because that is what happens in developed worlds. Unless you're a criminal and a fugitive on the run, I don't see a reason why, Mr. Speaker, police officers must use public money, taxpayers' money, to hunt people around, running around, and to come into people's home, as opposed to using better means, Mr. Speaker, that is cheap, affordable. We are talking about austerity measures, Mr. Speaker. That ought to be part of the austerity measures. How much fuel do some of these police stations burn? Just hunting around people who, with one phone call worth 2 shillings or 3 shillings, they will have found their way to that particular police station, Mr. Speaker. And this is part of the reform which I hope in the tenure of a very good distinguished Senator, Majority Leader Emeritus, Senator Professor Kithure Kindiki, we shall see, Mr. Speaker. Then, Mr. Speaker, you move on to clause 3, that despite the provisions of subsection 5A, the relevant house or its committee may require a person to appear before it within a shorter period, as it may determine taking into account the urgency of matter before the house of a committee. This is when Parliament is in need of a particular individual, and for one reason or the other, they are looking for an opportunity for you to present yourself, you know, that there is a matter that they feel that your attendance or otherwise is needed, Mr. Speaker, and that is extremely important. Section 4, Mr. Speaker, is just an amendment of the Principal Acts, a clean up, you know, where witnesses are given opportunity to be heard prior to the impositions of fines, verifying, these are basics of law, Mr. Speaker. The fine shall be a civil debt recoverable summarily in accordance with the debts, Mr. Speaker, and therefore, finally, is on section 5, where an order of arrest is to be effected by a police officer. The clerk shall transmit the order to the Inspector General for execution. This is now when, if the clerk have reached out to you, they cannot find you, Mr. Speaker, then they'll be left with no option other than to inform them that we cannot reach this particular person, and therefore find your ways. A person under arrest, Mr. Speaker, shall be held at a place as specified in the National Police Service Act or designated by the clerk for purposes of holding such persons. Mr. Speaker, a Parliament police station will be such an ideal place for such occurrence, Mr. Speaker, where for one reason or the other, you can find yourself that instead of arresting Senator Osotsi and taking him to Limuru here, and you know he comes from Vihiga, a very warm part of the country, If you place him in Limuru police station, he can easily lose consciousness because of the cold of the night, Mr. Speaker. That's why a more familiar environment, like the police station in Parliament here, Mr. Speaker, will form a particular holding place of importance. Same can be said of all of us, Mr. Speaker, because we know all these things, that today it happens to members on this side, the following day it's members on the other side. Therefore, it's important to make this possible. In this subsection, officer of the House of Parliament means any officer acting under the orders of the respective speaker or duly authorized by the respective clerk. These are just consequential amendments. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, this is an important amendment, something that we have discussed for a long time but have never actualized, Mr. Speaker, giving decency to members of Parliament so that we enjoy and we are not stopped on our streets in going about our duties. There are many people who are not happy with the decisions we take on matters that appear before this House, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, it is important that members of Parliament, in going about their duties, feel free to represent their people. They don't feel intimidated by anyone, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I want to appreciate this proposal. There is also something else that Senator Osotsi, I don't agree with you. When you want to impose, I have always said this in the past, 500,000 for somebody who has snubbed the summons of Parliament is a slap on the wrist. The people who snub parliamentary summons are arrogant and rich. So even the 2 million that you're asking for, in my humble opinion, is too little. Somebody must feel there must be a price to pay for anybody who's not being responsive and dishonoring summons to Parliament, be they public officers or whoever. Once Parliament has summoned you, Mr. Speaker, Parliament is a gathering of the people of Kenya. When the people of Kenya say they want to have a meeting with you and they have issued a summon, there is provided in procedure, Mr. Speaker, what a summon is. You know, it should be distinguished to the ordinary citizen so that people don't confuse. There is a difference between an invite to appear and a summon. By the time it gets to a summon, Mr. Speaker, it's because you have dishonored invites several times, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I think 2 million, Senator Osotsi, is still little. We need to be tough. There are people who are owed this money. No. That's another point which I don't want to lose. First of all, you need to increase the money. And secondly, we need to provide mechanisms of recovering this money, Mr. Speaker. I know, and the office of the clerk can correct me, there are public officers that we find for non-appearance. There are governors that we find for non-appearance last time, Mr. Speaker. And up to date, as we speak, to the best of my knowledge, they haven't paid. I wish we would have provided here, Senator Osotsi, for ways of recovering that money. The way in a court of law, if you are found to have dishonored a fine, Mr. Speaker, the court finds way of either selling goods that are known to you or finding way of enforcing this particular fine. So, Senator Osotsi, before we conclude on third reading, that is something which I want to plead with you. Increase the amount to something like 5 million Kenya shillings, and also ways of enforcing, Mr. Speaker, so that we find ways of compelling people to pay that particular fine. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support and appreciate the industry that has gone to into the thinking of making this bill. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mwaruma.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa hii fursa umenipa ili kuunga mkono huu mswada wa Parliamentary Powers and Privileges ambao umeletwa na Senator wa Busia wa Vihiga, Senator Osotsi. Kusema ukweli, huu ni mswada mzuri ambao unapatia uhai ibara ya 125 ya katiba ya kwamba bunge inaweza ita mtu yoyote ili kuja kutoa ushahidi, na ibara ya 50 ambayo inapeana ruhusa kwa mtu yoyote kusikizwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, nimekuwa kwa hili bunge nafikiri ni mwaka wa 7 sasa, na tumekuwa na shida saa zingine kupata watu ambao wanahitajika kuja kutoa ushahidi katika hili bunge, iwamo ni magavana ama mawaziri, na hii imepelekea kutopata ukweli kuhusu mambo kadha wa kadha. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika bunge iliyopita kuna magavana ambao wamekataa kuja katika Senate Public Accounts Committee ili kuja kutoa ushahidi. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, sababu ya ugatuzi, pesa nyingi sana zimeenda katika magatuzi na mara kwa mara zimefujwa na hazijatoa huduma kwa wananchi wetu. Pia kuna mawaziri kadha wa kadha wa bunge la kitaifa, wa serikali ya kitaifa ambao wamehitajika kuja kutoa ushahidi, Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini mara kwa mara hawaji, na hiyo imepelekea kucheleweshwa kupata majibu ya petitions nyingi. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, nakubaliana moja kwa moja ya kwamba faini ambayo inatolewa ni kidogo sana, na wakati maseneta wengine walipokuwa wanachangia walisema ya kwamba hii faini ya shilingi 500,000. Kuna magavana wengine wanauliza kama kuna M-Pesa ama paybill ili watume hiyo 1,500, na nafikiri hayo ni madharau. Kwa hivyo naunga mkono wengine ambao wamechangia ya kwamba hii faini iongezwe na iwe milioni 10, na pia kuwe na njia ya kuifanya hiyo iwe deni ambayo inaweza chukuliwa kulingana na ile inaitwa Public Debt Act. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hivyo naunga mkono pia ya kwamba kuwe na mbinu ya kulazimisha hawa wateja hawa mashahidi kuja katika bunge ili kutoa ushahidi, na wasipokuja basi kuwe na mbinu ya kuwashika na kuwaleta katika bunge. Mheshimiwa Spika, na naunga pia mkono kama inawezekana kuwe na polisi ya bunge ambayo itapewa nguvu za kushika hawa mashahidi ambao hawataki kuja katika bunge ili kutoa ushahidi. Mheshimiwa Spika, kutiwa nguvu kwa hii sheria itaipatia bunge meno na uwezo zaidi ambao utawezesha bunge kufanya kazi yao ya uangalizi ama oversight, ambayo hadi sasa, Mheshimiwa Spika, imekumbwa na changamoto nyingi kwa sababu bunge imeonekana kama haina meno ama uwezo wa kutosha wa kuleta mashahidi ili kutoa ushahidi. Mheshimiwa Spika, nafikiri sitakuwa na mengi zaidi ya hapo, lakini ni mswada mzuri wa Mheshimiwa Ososi ambao inatakana tuunge mkono kwa sababu unapelekea kufanya rahisi kazi ya bunge ili kuhakikisha kwamba pesa ambazo zinatolewa na ushuru wa mwananchi zinatoa hiyo kazi ama zinafanya kazi, na pia kwa sababu sisi kama bunge ama wabunge ni wawakilishi wa wananchi, tukiitisha petition ama maombi ama statements, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwamba zinapata majibu kwa wakati unaofaa. Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono.
Senator Methu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise also to support this particular bill, and Honorable Speaker, owing to the fact that we derive our mandate from Article 96 of the Constitution of Kenya, it is our cardinal responsibility to ensure that we protect the dignity and the powers that have been bestowed to this House, Honorable Speaker. And it has been said, and I don't want to buttress that point beyond what has been said by my colleagues, that Parliament works in plenary here and through our committees, Honorable Speaker. And we enjoy as much powers in our committees as we enjoy here in plenary, Honorable Speaker. And I would want to borrow the words that have been used by my leader, the Honorable Aaron Cheriot, that Parliament is a meeting of the people of Kenya. That the people of Kenya have caused an invitation to you, have extended an invitation to you, Honorable Speaker. For those of us who serve as chairmen of committees and who also serve in committees that are called accounting committees, Public Investment Committee that is led by Senator Ososi, and the Public Accounts Committee that is led by Senator Moses Kajwang, that I sit in as a member, we invite most of the work that we do, Honorable Speaker, because you've seen today, part of what has been laid by the leader majority as papers here, Honorable Speaker, are over 10 or 15 reports from the Auditor General of different counties, Honorable Speaker. So we invite governors to come and answer questions on how money has been used in their counties, on how well they are, or how prudent they are using the resources that have been passed by this House, Honorable Speaker. Just this afternoon, we have voted on the additional allocation bill that hopefully will be assented to send more money to the counties, Honorable Speaker. It cannot be, Honorable Speaker, that people that we invite to come and shed light on the usage of money, Honorable Speaker, are very happy and they clap very hard. I saw them when they had a retreat with the President in Naivasha. They are really insisting that their money must remain at 450 billion. They are very happy to ask and urge the Senate to send more money to the counties, Honorable Speaker. But when we call them to come and account for that money, Honorable Speaker, we get a lot of problems from the witnesses that we invite here to come and answer questions, Honorable Speaker. I'm particularly excited, Honorable Speaker, although I would also want to borrow from the words of Aaron Cheriot and my member, Senator Mwaruma. We have been ridiculed by those that we invite. You know, before we get to a summon, because it is fair that we elucidate this point, Honorable Speaker, before we get to summoning a witness, Honorable Speaker, there is an invitation that has been extended. From the President has been set, especially for the accounting committees, those members of the county executives and the county assemblies that are supposed to appear before the two committees, Honorable Speaker, are given a 1 month notice to come and appear. After 1 month, you fail to come is when we issue summons, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we have been treated to some of the, we are given some very ridiculous reasons as to why witnesses are not able to appear before committees, Honorable Speaker. Just the other day, I wish there were members of the Public Accounts Committee who are here. I can see Senator Mariam is here. Just the other day, we were told by one certain governor that they are not able to come to appear before Public Accounts Committee because they are attending some prayers at some place that I would not want to mention, Honorable Speaker. But the morning of the day that we were sitting, Honorable Speaker, the same governor was on a TV show in the morning. So they find more value in attending a TV show, Honorable Speaker, than coming to a meeting that has been called by the people of Kenya or a gathering of the people of Kenya, Honorable Speaker. It is these excesses of some of our partners that we are supposed to work with, Honorable Speaker, that we need to firm up these powers and privileges Act, Honorable Speaker. So, just the other day also the Public Investment Committee, I think, found the governor, and the governor was hard. I know it is not on record, Honorable Speaker, but the governor was hard asking, is there an M-Pesa number that I can send the 500,000, Honorable Speaker? Because 500,000 is money that you can send via M-Pesa. You know, they find that money too little that they can just miss. Then another fine is imposed on them. They send 500,000. Another fine is imposed on them. Another 500,000, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, we must ensure that a person feels the pain so that they're able to respect this House and they're able to respect the committees of this House, Honorable Speaker. So, even the 2 million that has been proposed by Senator Godfrey Osotsi, Honorable Speaker, we need to push it to either 5 million or 10 million, Honorable Speaker, so that people can understand and get to understand how important it is to appear before Parliament so that you're able to answer these particular charges, Honorable Speaker. My second and final comment that I would want to make on this matter, Honorable Speaker, we must also get a framework of ensuring that we are able to actually get this money when we impose this fine. It's not just about imposing a fine. It is imposing a fine and having a mechanism of ensuring that you can be able to recover this fine. If we impose a fine of 10 million on the person of a certain cabinet secretary that has refused to honor summons of Parliament, Honorable Speaker, how do we recover that money? So that we are able to recover from their own account, Honorable Speaker. It should actually even be in law, and I think we should be able to propose. If you are not able to meet your loan obligations, Honorable Speaker, you are sent to CRB. we as Parliament should have a mechanism of ensuring that if you have been fined by Parliament and you have not been, that money has not been recovered, you are listed on CRB as a person who is not credit worthy, so that you cannot get credit anywhere, whether you are serving on, and that time that you are not serving, until you are able to meet that fine that you have been imposed on you, Honourable Speaker. So we must have a mechanism, Honourable Speaker, of ensuring that we can be able to recover this money, Honourable Speaker. Finally, on the last part of the officers of the House that can be able to cause arrest, Honourable Speaker, I think I'm more persuaded to having a parliamentary police force, Honourable Speaker, that shall be able to help us in ensuring that we can be able to effect this. Just the other day, Honourable Speaker, from our police service, we got a water protection unit that has just been dedicated to ensuring that they protect our water towers, our water bodies, and all our water establishments in the country, Honourable Speaker. Their work is just dedicated to ensuring that they just protect those establishments, Honourable Speaker. We should get a police service that is dedicated to ensuring that we are able to arrest witnesses that are becoming not only those who do not come here, but even the hostile witnesses, Honourable Speaker. You cannot become hostile in court. We have seen witnesses that are hostile in our committees, Honourable Speaker. They do not want to follow the directions of the chairman, Honourable Speaker. These are people that we can be able to lock in somewhere for 6 or 7 hours or 12 hours, Honourable Speaker, until they are able to behave in a parliamentary manner, Honourable Speaker. So with those very many remarks, Honourable Speaker, so that I can allow my colleagues to also make their contribution, I want to support this bill, Honourable Speaker.
Senator Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this bill for parliamentary powers and privileges. It's actually overdue because, Mr. Speaker, I was here since last Senate, and I've experienced a lot of frustrations, especially when the governors are called at the peak to come and appear and they don't come. Most of them don't even give an excuse or even a right to say that they are busy and they won't make it. Mr. Speaker, this bill will be able to give the Senate and the senators teeth to bite. It is very frustrating for us as lawmakers when we summon these people to appear before the Senate or the committees and they don't appear, Mr. Speaker. And most of them, it's not that they have serious businesses that is making them not to come. It's just that they ignore because they know even if they don't come, there is nothing that will be done to them that, that will make them feel. So I would suggest, like others, Mr. Speaker, that the fine be raised to the 10 million that is suggested, and also a way of making sure that this money will be recovered. Whether the people's term is finished, or they are still working, but this money will be recovered. Mr. Speaker, I thank you and I support.
Senator Karungo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to support this very important amendment bill. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Article 96 of the Constitution, 3, the mandate of the Senate is to oversight or exercise oversight of a national revenue allocated to the county governments. Mr. Speaker, the national government every month, on the 15th of every month, is supposed to disperse some amount of money as passed by this Senate to every county. Once the governors receive this money, they are supposed to utilize it as per the budget that the county assemblies have passed. Mr. Speaker, as they do that, it is our mandate as a Senate to keep on checking on how they are using the disbursements, Mr. Speaker. And that's why we have two important committees, that is the CPIC and CPAC. CPIC on checking on the Auditor General's inquiries or audit queries, and of course when it comes to CPAC, no, the other way around, Mr. Speaker. CPAC is on the books of account. and CPIC is on investments in the counties, Mr. Speaker. Even the standing committees, Mr. Speaker, are allowed to invite governors and ask them questions on the running of county affairs. It is at this particular time, Mr. Speaker, some governors are not able to honor such invitations. Once they invited once or twice, the committee may want to issue summons. We have issued summons, Mr. Speaker, and some governors have refused to appear before the committee. I'm speaking about the governors because they are the most notorious people who decline the invitations or the summons. Mr. Speaker, the amount that was put in the previous law, or in the law that we are amending, was 500,000, which is just pocket change to some governors, Mr. Speaker. And that's why I agree with everyone who is saying even 2 million is little. What we should do, Mr. Speaker, in the amendment that I will be recommending, is to have not less than 2 million, but not more than 10 million. So that now the committee can have enough time to see this governor has been invited so many times, this is what he has been saying. A good example is the governor of Isiolo. He is out there trying to malign the name of this good Senate, saying he cannot come. Even if he's invited, he cannot come. What do you do to such a governor, Mr. Speaker? You give him the heaviest fine ever, so that he understands this is the Senate of Kenya, the one and only, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karungo, the Senator for Nyandarua wishes to inform you.
Yeah, I wish to be informed.
Proceed.
Honorable Speaker, I would have been surprised if he refused not to be informed. I just wanted to actually use the very specific words, I think the verbatim of what the governor said, that the only people who can hold him accountable, he can only answer to the people of Isiolo, not the Committee of Parliament, not the Senate itself. Nobody can talk to him, nobody can ask him questions apart from the people of Isiolo. If it is not such a person that, if you cannot take action on such a person, then what becomes of the space of Parliament? It is that information that I wanted to pass.
Thank you very much, Senator from Nyandarua, for that information. And the good governor should read Article 2 of the Constitution, that the same people that he is talking about, they have delegated power to the Parliament. We are elected, Mr. Speaker. And he should also read Article 125 of the Constitution that says that Parliament can summon anybody to come to this house. So, Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, can you imagine having a governor like that who has no respect for this Senate? It should give any committee leeway to give that governor a fine. But once we give a fine, Mr. Speaker, how do we effect that? I think within the law, we should also say any governor who is seated before the next election, before you are cleared by IEBC, you should also be cleared by Parliament, Mr. Speaker. So that when you are taking your papers to IEBC to be cleared for the next running, you should also be cleared by Parliament. So that at least if you owe Parliament anything, you pay at that particular time. Mr. Speaker, my committee on roads and transportation and housing, we summoned Governor of Nairobi, Governor Sakaja, after missing numerous invitation, and we fined him 500,000 Kenyan shillings, Mr. Speaker. Last week, the state governor paid the amount to the Senate, 500,000. But I noted something, Mr. Speaker. He paid through a banker's check, Mr. Speaker. And you know, a banker's check, that money can come to any account. And that is what I'm going to do as a committee. We need to check, go backward to see where that money came from. So going forward, we should say that money, no banker's check, it should come directly from that governor's account. Why am I saying that, Mr. Speaker? So that it can go on record, such a governor on such a date, he paid a fine to the Senate of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you look at section 4, it says that a witness shall be given an opportunity to be heard prior to imposition of the fine. Mr. Speaker, yes, we need to listen to them, but if they don't come, what happens? I think we need another clause below there, Mr. Speaker, that says if he does not appear on a day that he is called to come and defend himself, then the committee will have no other alternative. Because if you say you need to be heard and he never appears, then we leave it ambiguous. There's an ambiguity in that sentence, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill on the same section 4.4 is saying an order of arrest may be effected by a police officer or an authorized officer of a House of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. This should be clear. We need a police department, probably at the Senate or in Parliament, because we are about to issue arrest warrant for a certain governor, and the question came, what if the Inspector General is not willing to effect the arrest? Then it will leave the committee with an egg on his face, on their face, Mr. Speaker. So we need a well-articulated and well-organized police department at the Senate, because I see the next victim, or no, the next culprit, not victim, the next culprit on this issue of arrest is the governor of Kiambu, Mr. Speaker, because he has refused to attend the committee of CIPIC 6 times, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad they have invited him for the last time on 4th of March, that is next month. And I implore to my governor, wherever he is, because I know he follows this, please appear. Because if you don't appear, this law will be in effect. You'll either be fined 2 million Kenya shillings or more, or you will be arrested to be the first governor to be arrested, to be brought to the Senate, Mr. Speaker. If he doesn't want to be an example, he should appear. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, the bill is talking about, that is on section, the same section 4.7. Once the governor is arrested or any witness will be produced before court or the House or committee that summoned that person on the next working days, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you're arrested on a Friday, as it was popular, Kamata Friday, of which I don't think that this Senate would go that direction, you'll have to appear on a Monday. But what if the committee was not prepared to have a meeting on that? We have schedules, Mr. Speaker. So it should not be the next day. It will be the next time that committee is scheduled to sit. So that a certain governor, when you don't appear, you know that Committee on Roads sits every Thursday. So if you're arrested on a Monday, you know what would happen, Mr. Speaker. Because I believe that the governors that we have, Mr. Speaker, they don't take this Senate seriously, and especially those who are senators. It's because they knew, maybe previously, they were not executing their mandate as we are executing now. So it is my submission, Mr. Speaker, that this is a new Senate with the new blood, with the new energy, with the people who understand where they were voted for. So any governor who think that they would not want to appear before the Senate, they should be reminded every morning, every afternoon, that this is a Senate that is not what they left behind, and we have a new leader of majority, that is Aaron Cheruiyot, and we have a new chairman of the roads, that is Karongo Wadhangwa, the Senator of Kiambu. So they should not play with this Senate. And I support this bill, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Senator Osotsi, for this beautiful bill. Thank you.
Senator Muma, what clarification are you seeking?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise under Standing Order number 112 for purposes of maintenance of order in the House. Could you please, Mr. Speaker, sir, clarify how the money that is now being paid as fines by governors who have been penalized by committees will be appropriated?
Senator Boni, is that your contribution? Because that's an intervention to the bill. Those are the same things that senators should speak to. It's not up to me. I'm your referee here. I cannot direct how this bill will be crafted. I cannot direct how this fine is going to be appropriated. It's up to you as senators. As you debate this, that should come out very clearly.
That is true, Mr. Speaker. I was speaking to the 500 which has already been paid by the governor of Nairobi. the people of Kakamega would like to know how that money will be utilized now that it is in the Senate. And probably you could use that opportunity, Mr. Speaker, sir, to tell the people of Nairobi whether they stand to benefit from that 500, and if they do, into which account was the money deposited in the Senate, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
I thought Senator Boni will know this, having served in CPIC before, a long-serving member of this House, that any public institution, for any resources or money that you collect, go into an A account, appropriations in aid, which you transmit to the Treasury, because you can't spend public money without the approval of Treasury. So, Parliament, for monies that we earn from fines, or even say, for example, training, because there are people who come to Parliament for training and they pay, it's put into our A account and forwarded to the Treasury.
Tamuma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this amendment bill. For the sake of the students in the gallery, we are discussing the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill 2023. Honorable Speaker, I wish to congratulate and to thank Senator Osotsi for passing this bill. Again, for the sake of our students, I wish to read what Article 125 provides. Article 125 says that either House of Parliament and any of its committees has the power to summon any person to appear before it for purposes of giving evidence or providing information. It then provides at the subsection 2 that for purposes of clause 1, a House of Parliament and any of its committees has the same powers as those of the High Court. Mr. Speaker, we need to operationalize, and this is what Senator Osotsi is enabling us to do. Mr. Speaker, when people are in positions of power, they tend to imagine that they are not subject to the rule of law. And that's what's happening with a number of people, both in the executive at the national level and with governors who are the executives at the county level. Mr. Speaker, there is a reason why we have our governance system designed in the manner that it was designed. A democratic system where you have the three arms of government which act as a check and balance to each other to enable every one of us to know that you are not the ultimate power unto yourselves. All the three arms of government report to the people of Kenya and are expected to deliver their services in accordance with the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, our role as Parliament is to oversight the executives. And we oversight the executives by looking onto what they are doing to ensure that it is done in accordance with the law. Where there is an issue, we need to verify whether they have acted in accordance with the law or not. We are given those powers under Article 125 to enable them to come and explain themselves on why an issue seems to be getting off track, recognizing that they are subject to the law. They are not a law unto themselves. Mr. Speaker, the powers and privileges law has been in place, but it does not seem to be working. We have a category of public officers who think they are above the law. Among them, some cabinet secretaries, some permanent secretaries, and governors. Mr. Speaker, this law is absolutely important, and I think we need to add on all these provisions that honorable senators have contributed, particularly on the issue of levying higher fines than we currently do, to ensure that officers who refuse to honor summons will be cited for contempt of Parliament. In fact, Mr. Osotsi, I think, Senator Osotsi, forgive me, I think we need to create that offense of contempt of Parliament. Article 125 says we have similar powers to the High Court, and when you don't do what the High Court requires you to do, you are cited for contempt of court. We need to specifically create that offense of contempt of Parliament and then proceed to say that contempt of Parliament will actually attract the following sanction. I support colleagues, I think it's Methu and colleagues Thangwa, who have spoken to a fine that is more than the 2 million. I think Senator Thangwa's proposal that we provide for a minimum of 2 million and a maximum of 10 million is good. And Mr. Speaker, when this came to JLAC, we actually said that these cannot be monies paid by the people of Kenya. So this money must come from the personal resources of the officer who has actually been cited for contempt of Parliament. Because you cannot take funds that were intended for a particular project to go and pay fines for a minister or to go and pay fines for a governor. That is stealing from the people of Kenya. Because the people of Kenya in the first place expect that you will respect the laws of this country. So when you are disrespecting the laws of this country, you do so as an individual. So I think that we need to support or strengthen the clause that indicates that they must pay this from their own personal funds. I like the proposal that they should then be cited in CRB if they do not pay as only owing monies to the Senate, so that this issue is able to follow them in terms of their own issues. Mr. Speaker, as has happened and as may happen, we need to think through the issue of how they will be arrested. We need to contemplate that we might not have the police officers carrying out the arrest. How do we deal with police officers who will not carry out the arrest? In my view, I think we also need to create another offense, that any person obstructing the arrest of an officer who is in contempt of Parliament also commits an offense. And obstructing arrest of an officer who is in contempt of Parliament should include the failure by any instructed police officer to actually arrest this officer. I think we need to contemplate that there could be collusion by arresting officers who might not arrest. But we should also contemplate that you might get some of these officers using goons or other people to make the arrest impossible. And we should be able to cite also an offense against anybody who does this. Mr. Speaker, even as we speak to this, we need to send the message to the public that the bigger picture is about getting all officers to behave or to have conduct expected of them. And conduct expected of them is that this country has laid down rules. Among those rules, it has set institutions, and those institutions have particular mandates. And for this country to run properly, those institutions must be allowed to carry out their mandates. So when you don't turn up to explain why development in County X has not happened in the manner it was supposed to happen, why the auditor's report has cited particular issues in County Y, when you refuse to do so, you actually deny the people of Kenya the knowledge they need to know and to assess you as to whether you are a good governor or good leader or not. And the Constitution itself has contemplated that if you do so, we must be able to enforce the mandates of Parliament. So we should look at this as a law, and in my view, the stiff penalty is only sending the message that we don't have anything, we don't even want your money. What we want is for you to turn up and tell us why A, B, C, D has not happened, or why this is happening in the manner in which it's happening. Mr. Speaker, I'm a member of some women groups, and we pay these merry-go-rounds. And one of the things we do is to put a very stiff penalty for ourselves, so that if we are supposed to pay 20,000 shillings to Madam Eunice there, and she has planned to use the 20,000 from 20 of us to go and do something, but Catherine fails to pay the 20,000 when she's supposed to, we are actually undermining the job that Eunice was planning to do. So what we do even in the women groups, we find ourselves heavily in order to keep in line, to know that once you have a group and you have laws that you have put in place, it's important that everybody respects those laws. So these powers and privileges act, and the amendment rules are about telling everybody, please just do your job, and your job includes standing up to explain why you have done certain things in a particular way. I therefore support this and congratulate and ask that we add all the amendments that members have provided, and we are going to have a stronger parliament, not just the Senate, but the National Assembly as well. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Catherine. In your contribution, you made reference to a member of your women group called Eunice. I do not know whether you meant that it's indeed existing, because my mother is called by that name, Eunice. Senator Waheti Veronica Ndwati.
Thank you, Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this important debate. Mr. Speaker, this is a very timely amendment to the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act, and it comes in as the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill 2023. Mr. Speaker, and we all very much know that the functions of the Senate are anchored in Article 96, and they go towards Article 96 to...
Senator Veronica, I'll interrupt you to read communication from the chair.
Yes.
This is communication from the chair regarding visiting teachers and students from Makima Secondary School in Embu County. Honorable Senators, in the public gallery, we have 84 students accompanied by 4 teachers from Makima Secondary School in Embu County who are undertaking an educational visit in the Senate. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. And because Senator Mondigi, who is the senator for the Great County of Embu, is present, I'll ask you under 1 minute to welcome the visiting delegation or students to the Senate.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa ruhusa nichangie na nikaribishe shule ya Makima. Wale watoto wanafunzi wamekuja kujifunza hapa katika Senate. Karibuni sana watoto wa kutoka Embu County. Yangu ni kumwambia hapa tukua Senate, mkiwa nje mnasemanga tuko hatueleanwi, upande ni kwa walio wachache na upande ni kwa walio wengi, na tukiingia kwa hii nyumba huwa tunakuwa kitu kimoja. Yangu ni kumuomba tu wakati mtarudi manyumbani muweze kusoma vizuri, kwa sababu nyinyi mtakuwa viongozi wa kesho, lakini mkitaka kukaa vizuri mjiepushe na mambo ya pombe, dawa za kulevya na vitu zile zingine, kwa sababu mtakuwa viongozi wa kesho. Ya pili, hapa tunajifunza vile mmesikia vile mambo ya Senate vile inafanya kazi, pesa ya umma vile inakuja huko county vile tunasiangalia, na huwa tunasema mpaka iangaliwe vizuri na ifanye kazi mzuri, kwa sababu mnajua mkiwa kule mnataka pesa ya karo na pia pesa ya maji na pesa hata ya kupanda miti na hiyo vitu zingine. Kwa hivyo namwambia mkirudi manyumbani mrudi vizuri, na pia muweze kuambia wale wengine mambo zingine mjiepushe nazo, kwa sababu Senate inaangalia mambo ya masinani. Asante Bwana Spika.
Thank you, Senator Mudigi. Senator Veronica, you proceed with your contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was citing Article 96(3) that enjoins the Senate not only to determine the allocation of national revenue, but also to oversight over that national revenue insofar as it's being utilized by the county governments, Mr. Speaker. Now, that function of oversight, we must learn to understand it, and governors and other officials, other officers working for government must start to understand the meaning of that oversight role. Mr. Speaker, I believe that if that oversight role is used as a critical tool in our systems and in our governance mechanism, it can be used to stamp out the corruption, the rampant corruption that has become a menace to our nation, Mr. Speaker. Because that oversight role enjoins a governor or any state officer or any accounting officer who has been summoned by a committee in Senate to appear before that committee and answer questions on how utilization of resources or utilization of funds have been done during their tenure, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes I wonder whether the problem we have in our nation is the quality or the qualifications of the leaders that we are sending to offices, whether the leaders understand the constitutional stipulations, Mr. Speaker, whether the leaders have a full understanding of the mandate that is placed in their hands, Mr. Speaker, or whether the leaders occupy offices not having fully understood what they are required to do while they are in office, during their tenure of office, Mr. Speaker. Because it defeats logic and defeats common sense that a leader brought into an office through the Constitution by a vote of the people to lead a whole county, Mr. Speaker, is placed onto his hands or on her hands the fund or the resources that are required to run that county, yet when they are called to account on what they have done with those resources, they are hesitant, they refuse to obey summons, and they wake up the following morning and go back to the same offices for which they have refused to account. It defeats logic, it defeats the stipulation of the Constitution. It is the highest level of impunity, Mr. Speaker. That is why I support this bill, and indeed, like many senators have debated and indicated before, I think this fine should be upped to not beyond 5 million Kenyan shillings. In place of the 2 million, fine not exceeding 2 million, I believe it should be not exceeding 5 million, so that the penalty is so clear. And beyond even this penalty, I wish Senator Osotsi could consider putting in further amendments to ring-fence this function of Senate, the oversight function, so that, Mr. Speaker, we have something close to a list of shame of those people, those governors, those officers who have been summoned and have consistently refused to appear. So that there is a rule that even proposes that if you failed to appear on one single summon 3 times, and maybe you've even been fined the first time, there are no justifiable reasons why you did not present yourself before the committee. After the third such attempt by the committee to bring you before it, then a name is pushed to the list of shame, Mr. Speaker, so that the whole country and the whole world can know that an officer can receive public funds and does not want to account for it, Mr. Speaker. My other issue, Mr. Speaker, is that the fine is recoverable as a civil debt. That is a provision under Section 4(2)(a). The question we need to ask is who is paying this fine? It should be paid by, and there should be express provision indicating that this fine will be paid by the person who is defying the summons, so that they do not push this bill to the county or to public coffers. The public coffers must not be paying for the irresponsibility or the negligence of officers in failing to appear before the committee. Mr. Speaker, beyond the list of shame, there should be another sanction, Mr. Speaker. it should have a correlation with this person being voted in during the next round of elections, Mr. Speaker. And that brings in the aspect, Mr. Speaker, of involving the IEBC or the ORPP into this whole equation. So that if an officer or a person was not willing to abide or humble themselves under a certain process, parliamentary process, there should be a sanction on their candidature during the upcoming or the next, the following election, Mr. Speaker. That means if a candidate or if a governor has failed and is a first-time governor, Mr. Speaker, the second chance, they should not get an opportunity to be a candidate because they do not want to account for the functions and the role that the public has given to them, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I have stood to say that I'm in full support, full sanction to be levied against a person who defies the summons, Mr. Speaker, and that further penal sanctions be laid out, and if Senator Osotsi could consider adding in more, then it will mean that it's a serious issue when you are summoned in Parliament to account for the responsibilities which Kenyans have placed into the hands of leaders, and if they are not able to meet the standards and they cannot do it, they may as well resign from office and allow other candidates to occupy those offices and perform what they are required to do under the Constitution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Veronica. Senator Seki Lenku Olekanar.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I also want to support this motion, particularly on these amendments of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill. And I want to thank the Honorable Senator Osotsi for coming up with these amendments. Honorable Speaker, I happens to have been involved in so many issues, particularly on the issues where the cabinet secretaries are not appearing before my committee as the chair of Trade and Industrialization Committee in so many occasions. And this definitely brings a solution to that problem where the oversight that we are mandated as the Senate to oversee, or even to as a function that need to be, that has been given as a privilege given to the Senate and to Parliament, it is a solution that brings an end of this problem. I want to support these amendments and get to understand that well, we are in operations, particularly in our committees, working together with several, calling in or even inviting several cabinet secretaries, CEOs or director generals of institution parastatals. We undergo such kind of emulations as chairs, and that also tries to underperform our performance in these committees. Now, because we don't get the responses that we ought to have been giving, particularly on the statements and petitions that are given by the members of public. And I believe my brother Osotsi is coming in with a very long experience while he's the chair of PIC, and those are the issues and stress that he's also undergoing as a chair. And I want to say that this is the time when we really need to stand our feet as the Parliament, and the Parliament is being respected by the public officers who have been given mandates to do the implementations and work on behalf of the public. I believe by having some penalties increased, or even add the penalties instead of 500, we add to 2 million as proposed by this bill. I want to say that this is the right way to go. I believe that when we say 2 million, it might even be very small, as indicated by several of our colleagues. it is important that we come to realize that 2 million may even be a small amount to most of the CEOs and governors and CSSs who are coming before these committees. I believe that that will definitely give them more, it will be very punitive to them, and they are able to get to understand that something is on their shoulders, such that now they will be they will know that something is coming, and they will be able to be very responsible, come in on time, and even when there is excuses that they normally gives to us, it could be something very responsible, something important, because they know they will not be able to pay these penalties. So to me, I think the other penalties or even charges that has been proposed by my colleagues, particularly on issues of CRB, I really want to support this. The clearances as to Parliament is very important, that the senator, the owner of the bill, needs to look at, and more importantly, the list of shame as proposed by my sister Veronica Maina. And these are the issues that really needs to get into this bill, so that these people get to understand that their office, being in that office, is in behalf of so many people. He's on behalf of many people who are supposed to have been in that office. But he has been given a privilege to sit in that office, to work to the public, and even to be responsible, and you know, responsible at any given time, that is when he's called by Parliament. So I think this is a very important bill that we need to support, and as a Senator of Kajiado and the Chair of Trade and Industrial Committee, I want to support this bill in totality. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Joe Ruto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity, for me also to make a contribution towards the bill by my friend, the Senator for Vihiga, Senator Sotsi. Mr. Speaker, I chair the Education Committee. My training was in education, Mr. Speaker, and in education, in the psychology of education, there is a theory that is called Theory X. And this is a theory that provides that human beings naturally hate work. They only work because of the reward. They also work to avoid punishment, Mr. Speaker. It is for this reason that I stand here to support the bill brought to this House by Senator Sotsi, Mr. Speaker. When we have been, especially at the committee level, when we have been inviting CSs, governors, and other officers who are CEOs in their ministries or even their counties, sometimes, Mr. Speaker, we see a lot of contempt, especially when these summons come from the Senate, Mr. Speaker. I say this because you will find a CS, while or when invited by the Senate, sometimes they do not even give a damn about these invitations. But when they're invited by the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, and I think that is why I have a very big problem, they honor the summons or invitations by the National Assembly religiously. The same does not happen with, sometimes does not, they do not take summons by the Senate as seriously as they do when it comes to the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we must, through this bill by Senator Rosossi, give the Senate teeth to bite, and bite well, Mr. Speaker. These are things that tie committee work, because sometimes we need responses from these CSs and other officers, Mr. Speaker. That is why we must support this bill, and that's why I support this bill. Mr. Speaker, something else that is very frustrating is to see governors who have served in this House as senators contempting the Senate. It has been very frustrating, Mr. Speaker, because you would have naturally expected that if any governor served here as a senator, then they would respect the Senate better than other governors, maybe who have not been able to serve in the Senate, Mr. Speaker. What then I propose is that we make the minimum penalty 5 million, not even 2 million. I would propose 5 million, Mr. Speaker, with a capping of 10 million. And let it be paid from their personal account, Mr. Speaker, because they cannot make the institutions which they serve to pay these penalties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we must take these things very seriously. This contempt must be dealt with. And it is for this reason, Mr. Speaker, amongst very many other reasons, that I support this bill with a proposal again of 5 million minimum and maybe a maximum of 10 million. Mr. Speaker, I support, and thank you very much.
Senator Mandago Jackson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this amendment by Senator Otsotsi. Honorable Speaker, from the onset, I want to declare that I support the amendment brought in by Senator Otsotsi on the issue of compliance to summons to Parliament, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in my support for this amendment, Mr. Speaker, it is the behavior of officers, state officers who have been given responsibility of managing resources and failing to account for the same resources, Honorable Speaker, even after being given opportunity by the various committees of Parliament to appear and shed light, Honorable Speaker. The opportunity state officers and government officers are being given to appear before committees, Honorable Speaker, is to ensure that no government officer is wrongfully accused, Honorable Speaker, of having committed any offense. And therefore, it defeats the whole purpose when the same officers refuse the opportunity they've been given to actually give explanations and dispense any allegations that have been leveled against them. Honorable Speaker, for certainty of recovery of these fines, Honorable Speaker, I would propose that the fines be recovered from the payroll. And Honorable Speaker, as it is, when recoveries are made from payroll, they are given precedence over any other deduction. That way, Honorable Speaker, first it gives us an opportunity to confirm that the recoveries are happening, and two, to keep a record and a permanent record in government records of an officer whose salary was recovered for failing to appear to account for the resources that have been given to them. Honorable Speaker, I would also suggest that Senator Otsotsi would consider asking the Parliamentary Service Commission, Honorable Speaker, to establish an office at the level of the Director of Security, a post that should be held by a senior police officer equivalent to that of the DIG, in order to ensure that the arrests can happen, Honorable Speaker, so that the seriousness of Parliament and this amendment can be taken serious, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this is going to not only help Parliament get answers to questions they have been seeking, but it also will help the general public of Kenya in terms of improving the accountability environment that we all seek, in order to ensure that the resources that are meant for public functions are used for public functions, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, having served as a governor myself, I really don't find any good reason whether a governor, a PS or a CS can have not to appear before any committee of Parliament. And Honorable Speaker, as I stand here, I proudly say I am among the governors who honored all the summons to Senate
Honorable Speaker, without failure, except one, Honorable Speaker, when I was on paternity leave. If you accept public resources, if you are among the people who demand for additional allocation, Honorable Speaker, and I saw my colleagues, the governors, our friends, the governors, Honorable Speaker, asking national government to increase allocation of counties to 450 billion. You cannot expect to receive public resources and also refuse to account for the uses of the same public resources. And that's why I stand here, Honorable Speaker, as a senator for Singishu County, and dare I say, even having served as a governor, even today I've been asked to step aside in my role as a senator to appear before any committee to explain expenditures that occurred during my administration as the governor for Singishu, Honorable Speaker. I would be more than glad to do that because it gives you the chance to exonerate yourself. And I want to urge the governor, Honorable Speaker, that the opportunity they get to appear before committees should actually take that opportunity positively and use it to improve the systems, Honorable Speaker. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, I am also a champion of increasing the number of Senate machinani that we can have in order to build capacities of counties. And I will tell you, Honorable Speaker, when the Senate machinani came to us in Gishu County, and I asked the Public Accounts Committee, Honorable Speaker, to give me a chance to present my county executive committee members and the chief officers to also answer to the questions we have been appearing before the Senate, Honorable Speaker, I can assure you the subsequent financial years, we had minimum errors, we never had issues of non-submission of documents, and from there, the quality of audits in my county improved. I therefore support this amendment by Senator Otsotsi because it is completely frustrating, Honorable Speaker, when officers are called to come and account. And I sympathize with the committee of the Public Accounts Committee and the Public Investments Committee, Honorable Speaker, considering the workload. When we have to reschedule for 15 officers, for example, it makes the work of that committee impossible to function, and the committee looks as if in front of the House as being not efficient, Honorable Speaker, and yet it is not the making of that committee. We therefore, as a House, Honorable Speaker, I think, persuade all my colleagues that it is extremely important to support this amendment. I agree with my colleagues in terms of even making it a little bit more stringent, particularly in the quest to enforce the recovery of those funds, Honorable Speaker. And I also want to urge, Honorable Speaker, my colleague senators, that even as we summon governors, Honorable Speaker, we should now begin thinking, how do we also get the chief officers, who are the accounting officers, and the CECs, who are the heads of policy in the departments, to be part of the people being held accountable and responsible, so that officers at the county level, you know, unlike national government, Honorable Speaker, you know, you can summon a minister, but you cannot put the responsibility on the president. But for counties, Honorable Speaker, a chief officer and a CEC and a county secretary can do their own things, but finally, the governor is the one being asked. But I also want to ask governors, the opportunity for you to exonerate yourself is when asked to appear before the committee, is to appear before that committee so that you can put your explanation and the relevant officers can then be taken to account. Honorable Speaker, I wish to support this amendment and request Senator Otsotsi to consider the issue of having a responsible officer, Honorable Speaker, who will always be tasked with that responsibility and who can take instruction from Parliament, Honorable Speaker, so that we can ensure that this is not just a law in the paper, but we can enforce to make sure it happens. I happen to serve, Honorable Speaker, also as a member of the Trade Committee, and I share the sentiments of my chair, the Senator for Kajiado, Senator Segi Olelengu, Honorable Speaker, in the frustrations we've gone through in invitation of Cabinet Secretaries to appear before the committee. Even in my own committee that I chair for health, Honorable Speaker, it took the Cabinet Secretary for health over 2 years to appear before the committee, Honorable Speaker. And look at the function of health, which is 90% involved, Honorable Speaker, and the Cabinet Secretary cannot even have time to come. But I want to now thank the Cabinet Secretary for having reformed and make sure that whenever we now ask her to appear and our team, they have not been appearing. I hope they will now even appear much more with the passage of these amendments, because otherwise we shall not hesitate as a committee measures. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I support.
Did you say that it took the cabinet secretary more than 2 years to appear before your committee?
Yes.
Did you say you might need to correct that statement, because I believe that...
Honorable Speaker, there is nothing to correct. Senator Esio Kenyuri is in the House. She's a member of that committee. In fact, let me now even put it more clear. The cabinet secretary only appeared when we issued a summons.
The term of more than 2 years is what I referred to, Senator.
Honorable Speaker, Parliament in August of 2022, myself being a former Honorable Speaker, you know we count the number of years we have harvested maize. So we have harvested in 2022 and we have harvested in 2023. To my consideration, those are 2 years. I don't know whether we are talking of 24 months, but thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Your seat. Senator Esther Okenyori.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I also want to support the amendment that has actually been brought forward by Senator for Vihiga, Senator Ososi, who is also the chair for the County Public Investment and Special Funds Committee. This is a very good proposal, Senator Ososi, and I think, you see, regardless of the political affiliations we are in, I subscribe to the proposal you're bringing forth to this House. Mr. Speaker, Parliament needs to stop now being perceived as a toothless bulldog. Mr. Speaker, Parliament actually approves the appointment of several state officials, and Parliament equally has the mandate to strip them off some of those positions they hold. So, Mr. Speaker, I do not understand where people get the courage and the guts not to honor parliamentary summons, Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary summons need to be honored for the Senate to gain its rightful place in society. Senate needs to bite. And in fact, Senator Ososi, the proposal of raising it to 2 million needs to rise higher, Mr. Speaker, and introduce a situation where some of these officials are not going to have anticipatory bail. I know there are people who are going to argue that it would actually even interfere with their rights and privileges. But equally, as representatives of the people who spare time to sit in those committees are actually being disserviced by having to wait for people who don't show up, Mr. Speaker. So the situation of anticipatory bail in this case should not appear. Mr. Speaker, we very well know the issue of accountability is very central and key to this administration, led by our own President, Dr. William Ruto, and we should be leading from the front. We can't have members being summoned to committees and all they do is issue apologies and rescheduling of meetings. I agree with my chair, Senator Mandago, who's just stepped out, that it takes us so many meetings to have a appear in front of a committee, and some of the issues are so dire. Look at such a scenario, Mr. Speaker and members. A member who has actually looted public resources and is being expected to appear in a committee and doesn't show up. By the time Parliament expires, these guys will have already gotten away with the crimes they have committed. And maybe the next time they make a comeback to Parliament, there will be paupers, no money to recover from such kind of individuals. So, Senator Ososi, the sanctions must be severe and enforceable for this House to regain their rightful place as the upper house. And it's not going to be business as usual, Mr. Speaker, because it's not just for the county chiefs. I think for the county chiefs looks worse because they have an opportunity, they have money that has been allocated to them, and they are taking advantage of that fact to easily give the 500,000, which an ordinary mwananchi from Nyamakima or Kenyenya is not able to raise. It shouldn't be very easy for someone to give 500,000 money which any ordinary man has actually not even heard of, Mr. Speaker. So people who really understand how critical accountability is should appear and honor parliamentary summons. Because, Mr. Speaker, as as legislators and representatives of the people, we spend most of our time to actually keep time and attend these committees, and members of the public are actually waiting for some of their issues to be heard. Then the next thing you get is, please reschedule. I don't think we want to deal with such business. So Senator Ososi, I think you've heard the issue of anticipatory bail should not arise in this case. The 2 million is a bit on the lower side, especially when you look at the case of county chiefs, because that's money they can sign off very quickly because they have huge resources that are sent down to counties for use in assisting people. I see there are countries which have taken very radical measures when members or people who are expected to appear in the committees fail to appear. Countries like Swaziland, South Africa, we need to borrow a few cases from those countries so that we actually change how we generally carry ourselves as leaders and as members of the public. Because in as much as we want to talk about this from this angle, it's generally a culture, a Kenyan culture, whereby people think they can easily get away with whatever ills they commit and nothing will actually happen to them. Someone kills an individual and are still walking large in society. No action has been taken. Mr. Speaker, it shouldn't be that it's we are now talking, we are actually supporting this amendment to curb some of the big, the perceived big fish. But surely, it shouldn't be easy for the big fish to get away with some of the ills they commit. What will we be showing the ordinary people who do not have some of the privileges these officials have, Mr. Speaker? So this amendment is timely and needs to be more tougher than actually proposed here, Mr. Speaker. So I want to support and say that it's time for Parliament to stop being perceived as a toothless bulldog, and the Senate needs to bite more than it's biting now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mundigi.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa ruhusa nichangie mjadala wa mambo ya gavana, vile hatua itakuwa inasukuliwa wakiwa wamealikwa wakuja wajibu maswali. Kitu ya kwanza nataka niseme, miaka iliyopita ya ukatusi miaka 10, pesa nyingi kaunti nyingi zimepatiwa pesa, na kaunti nyingi pesa zimepotea na magavana na wafanyikazi. Na pia ukikuta tukisema wakati wapatia pesa kidogo, huwa saa hiyo tunakuanga senator na magavana, Bwana Spika, huwa analamika tunakuwa ni maadui, lakini tukiwaongezea pesa inakuwa pia ni maadui, kwa sababu wakati tunaenda masinani tukitaka kuangalia ile kazi wamefanya, Bwana Spika, huwa wanakuwa uso yao wanakuwa watakuona sisi, sio kwa mikutano, sio wapi, inakuwa ni shinda. Na wakati tunawahitaji wakuje wajibu maswali, vile pesa wametumia inakuwa ni shinda, wanajipa ruhusa ya kusema wako na kazi nyingi, wako mambo mingi. Naomba Bwana Spika, tuchukue hatua, tuone ni nini naweza kuangaliwa na ni pesa ngapi, kama watakuwa wanahudhuria kikao, tuone pesa ngapi, kama hiyo inasemekana ni milioni 2 ambayo wanaweza kupigwa faini, ndio waweze kusema kuwa watakuwa wakihudhuria. Nataka kusema for example kama Embu, kama wakati huu gavana aliyeko anajaribu kufanya kazi, lakini miaka 10 ya ukatusi, pesa ilitumika na njia ile haifai. Kulikuwa ni mambo ya kupigana, kusoseana na mambo mingi. Sasa unakuta wakati gavana ameingia, amekuta kuna pesa nyingi imetumika na njia haifai. Unakuta mabenki haikuwa inalipwa, unakuta hospitali ilikuwa imesoroteka, unakuta kulikuwa na shinda. Kwa hiyo naunga mkono vitu kama hiyo isukuliwe. Na pia kuna kitu tunafaa tuangalie, kama gavana amesimama na ameshindwa, itakuwa inasukuliwa hatua gani? Kwa hiyo kama sasa kaunti nyingi pesa ilitumika na ile magavana, lakini hakuna hatua imesukuliwa. Kwa hivyo nataka kuomba pia hapo iangaliwe, tuone itakuwa namna gani. After ameshindwa, tuone itakuwa inasukuliwa hatua namna gani. Kwa hivyo naunga mkono, tuone vile itaendelea, ndio tuone vile watapelekwa kotini, ama tukiwahitaji kuwe na askari. Tukisema ni askari ambayo ni wa serikali, itakuwa na shinda. Kushaona kama wale tunafanya kazi nao hapa wanafanya kazi nzuri, na tumeona pia mtu akileta shinda hapa, kama siku nyingine najua ni rafiki yangu Sasa Sirigei alishukua hapa juu. Kwa hiyo ningeomba hao askari ndio tunakuwa tunatumia waweze kuendelea kulete mangavana katika Senate. Asante na naunga mkono Bwana Speaker.
There being no other senator interested in contributing, I'll call upon the mover, Senator Osotsi, to reply.
Mr. Speaker, let me start by thanking all the members who have contributed to this debate, particularly the leadership of this House, the Senate Majority Leader, Minority Leader, Minority Whip, Majority Whip, and the others. Mr. Speaker, listening to the contribution by the members in this House, I have come to notice that probably this House needs to have a total review of the Powers and Privileges Act, because members have raised a number of issues. But Mr. Speaker, you know my bill was only dealing with the two issues. One is the issue of enhancement of fines upon someone, and number two, the issue of the power of arrest. But members have raised a number of issues which maybe we need to consider in a proper bill that will look at those issues. I have heard members talk about contempt of parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think this House needs to have a look at this matter. If you go to other jurisdiction, for example, Zambia, which is an African country like us, they have, in their Powers and Privilege Act, they have defined the process of handling contempt of parliament. And Mr. Speaker, there are issues to do with list of shame. This can also come there. Issues to do with the clearance for elections. I think, Mr. Speaker, this is an important issue because this House has adopted reports. Some of these reports have even recommended that some individuals are unfit to lead. But what has been done about that, Mr. Speaker? These people continue to contest elections and still come back to the same House that resolved that they are unfit to lead. Mr. Speaker, the other issue which we must be alive to when we talk about our powers and privilege, is how we can protect our oversight role. Mr. Speaker, I have seen in some counties where whenever senators want to do their oversight role, and they are doing it, governors even send people to demonstrate against the senators. Some even send MCS to go and do press conferences condemning senators. Mr. Speaker, we must find a way of protecting our oversight role, especially in the counties. Mr. Speaker, you know very well that this bill is not just dealing with the issues of governance, but we are dealing with all witnesses that appear in the House, be it witnesses from the national government, from county government, even personal individuals who appear before Parliament. They will be expected to adhere to the provisions of this bill. Mr. Speaker, if you allow me to quickly go through some of the comments members have talked about, there was the issue of increasing the fines. Honorable members will be consulting with the relevant committee, in this case the JLAC, on the proposals that you have given, so that we can consider amending the bill to reflect the positions that you have given. Mr. Speaker, there is also the issue of urgency, appearance on urgency. That has been covered in this bill, so that you don't have to wait for 7 days, as we have always been doing. You can be asked to appear before the committee within a shorter period of time, and this will enhance the operations of our committee. Mr. Speaker, there was also the issue of who bears the burden of the fine. I think this is a very important point, because we should not fine these people and they end up drawing money from public coffers. So this is one area that, again, I'll be consulting with the committee to amend it, so that it's very clear that these funds will be from personal sources. There was also the issue of how do you recover the fines. Mr. Speaker, this bill makes reference to Debt Summary Recovery Act, which has specific guidelines on how that recovery is done and how complaints are filed. So the clerk of the two houses will be able to file complaints to trigger this process. Mr. Speaker, there was also the issue of the powers to arrest. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the amendments that are proposed under clause 4(6), that says where an order of arrest is to be effected by the officer of a House of Parliament, the Inspector General shall facilitate the arrest as may be requested by the clerk. So we are not taking away the powers of the police, but we are bringing in a provision that the Inspector General shall facilitate that officer of Parliament to ensure that the arrest is done. So this particular clause ensures that this bill or this particular amendment is in line with the Article 245 of the Constitution that gives independence to the office of the Inspector General of the Police. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, if you go to Article 245(2)(b), it talks about independence of the IG, but then it also says the IG will perform any other functions prescribed by the national legislation. So by us saying that the Inspector General of Police shall facilitate, that is in line with Article 245, and there is nothing unconstitutional about that. Mr. Speaker, there was also the issue of where to hold the witnesses. If you look at the amendments, Mr. Speaker, under clause 4.7, says a person arrested under subsection 3 shall A, be held at such a place as specified in the National Police Service Act, or as shall be designated by the clerk for the purposes of holding such persons. B, be produced before court or house or committee that summoned that person on the next day. This covers that, and that deals with the issue of constitutionality, that this individual will be held at a gazetted place where such witnesses are held, or a place designated by the clerk. For the purpose of this house, we have a police station in the presence of Parliament, and that's where such a person can be held. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to belabor the points because members have exhaustively discussed this bill, and I want to encourage members who have amendments to approach the clerk and make the amendments, and I will also be making amendments to reflect the views expressed by members. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the members, and I know this bill is going to be passed by this House. I want to ask the members of the National Assembly to also do the same, because they go through the same challenges we are going through. Just this week, Mr. Speaker, it was reported that a top officer of a revenue collection agency in this country was summoned by the National Assembly for failing to appear before National Assembly for a record 14 times. And there are many other cases like that. So I think this is the time that Parliament need to exercise their powers, and I want to encourage that we have an overhaul of the Powers and Privilege Act, the Parent Act, so that we can deal with the issue of contempt of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I also want to request that pursuant to Standing Order number 66.3, that the question, the putting the question be deferred to a later date because of the numbers here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sotsi, this bill is deferred to the next session of the House for purposes of putting the question. Clerk, next order, please.
Order number 12, the Sugar Bill, National Assembly Bills number 34 of 2022, second reading.
Deferred. Next order.
Order number 13, the National Rating Bill, National Assembly Bills number 55 of 2022, second reading.
This is similarly deferred to the next session. Next order, please.
Order number 14, the Meteorology Bill, Senate Bills number 45 of 2023, second reading.
Order number 14 is equally deferred to the next sitting. Next order.
Order number 15, the Public Service Values and the Principles Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 46 of 2022, second reading.
Senator from Nandi, Senator Cherargei, this bill proceeds to take the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. I would have expected Senator Otsozi to thank all of us, but I think he was trying to summarize everything. Mr. Speaker, sir, mine is a straightforward amendment where we are trying to amend the Public Service Values and Principles Act number 1A of 2015. Mr. Speaker, sir, you know, public service Commission, and counties also has been provided under Article 232 on values and principles of public service. We are trying to give effect to this amendment to Public Service Values and Principles Act of 2015. Mr. Speaker, sir, one of the core values when you look under Article 10 on national values and principles of good governance is regional balance. And coincidentally, public service and even county public service boards. And I've said, Mr. Speaker, in public accounts where
I'll interject.
Yes.
For purposes of guidance, you have not moved the bill to be read a second time.
Okay.
So as a senior senator,
my
member, you proceed. I'll request that you take your seat so that I make communication, then you come back to move.
Honorable members, this is a communication from the chair on visiting students from the University's Students Association in Nandi County. Indeed, this is your county, Senator Cherargei. Honorable senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon visiting students from the University's Students Association in Nandi County. The delegation comprises 40 students who are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. Honorable senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. I'll call upon Senator Cherargei to also, under 1 minute, welcome the delegation from your county as you move the bill under Public Service Values and Principles Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 46 of 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you have already indicated on my own behalf and on behalf of this House, I want to extend a warm welcome to a group of Nandi Students Association who are on academic excursion and learning in the parliamentary processes. I want to ask them to feel welcome, and they should be lucky that they have found their senator on action, which is rare. It is just coincidence that they are found. So, Mr. Speaker, as we have right to welcome, feel free. They should learn. I hope they will visit also National Assembly. They will also interact with the Temple Office and the Office of the Speaker, and I know they will be given necessary support. Mr. Speaker, I went to the second point. Mr. Speaker, I beg that the Public Service Values and Principles Amendment Bill 2022 be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, as I rightfully, and my apologies for that oversight, I think it is Senator Otsosi who distracted me, but Mr. Speaker, I was just saying we are just giving effect to Article 232 on values. And my opening remarks is that the Public Service Commission or Public Service sector, both at national and counties, gobble a lot of billions of shillings because of salaries and many other expenses, Mr. Speaker. You know, counties are joking, Mr. Speaker, because of huge salaries and stipends and allowances that are paid to public servants, both at the national and county level, Mr. Speaker, sir. And therefore, this is very important. Article 232, I said Article 10 on national values and principles of good governance. We should have a public service that is reflective, that has regional and national outlook, ethnic diversity. We should look at cultural diversity. And that is why when NCIC removed the equation of how the public service looks in the country, it is very critical for stock taking. But also, Mr. Speaker, we must understand that with diverse demography in terms of population across the country, this is a challenge. Just like gender parity is always a moving target, it is the same with the public service sector. And that is why many people find that as other ethnic communities in this country might feel disenfranchised, because in as much as we are the face of Kenya, sometimes some of the communities, because of historical marginalization, it is hard to be able to be reflective of that, Mr. Speaker. The other day, for the first time, I met an Oromo. I've never seen an Oromo, Mr. Speaker, so you can imagine, or an James, or at least from where you and come is there is a number of what we call small communities. And therefore, it is always hard to be reflective of that. What we are pushing is equity and equality so that they can feel accommodated, Mr. Speaker. So the vision of the under Article 232 is to ensure that we have that diversity. You know, where I come from, there is a community called Ogiek. If such community maybe runs, and the Ogiek community straddle all the way from Nandi, Kericho, Bomet, and Nakuru, all through. When you go to Amabe, there is a minority communities that they can't get elected. And even I know the struggle within our counties is how do we ensure all the clans or all the communities appear, Mr. Speaker. So when you look at Article 232, the issue of public service and values is to ensure that we have Kenya diverse communities being reflected. And that is very important. The process of policy making is very critical, Mr. Speaker, because of public participation, of course, which is now part and integral part. You remember one of the bill that was read the first reading today, Mr. Speaker, was on the affordable housing that were passed yesterday by the National Assembly overwhelmingly. Is also the reason courts brought it back is because of the aspect of public participation, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, another aspect of values of public service Commission is economic use, value for money. And that is why many people think that auditors, normally when auditors say value for money, they just put that word just for the sake of it. It means that you are being paid. Even when you look at the Labor Relations Act, equal work, equal pay. Or equal pay, equal work. And that is why when you look at Labor Relations Act, Mr. Speaker, and I know you have been a practitioner for longer in the corridors of justice, and I don't know whether you can classify Senator Okia Mutata also as a longer practitioner by being public interest litigator. So I don't know, but maybe that's something Law Society of Kenya must consider in future to know whether you can capture Senator Okia Mutata as part of practitioners. So, Mr. Speaker, another point I wanted to make, because I'll be very quick, this is a straightforward amendment. Also, there is affording adequate and equal opportunities for appointment, and that is why, Mr. Speaker, we normally fight. Even when there is hiring of a CEO, a chairman, a managing director, Mr. Speaker, most of these fights always are stemmed out of that equal opportunities. And that is why we have always insisted, when you look at adverts, even at the counties and even the national, they always say maybe Kenya National KRA is an equal opportunity employer, for example. They will always say, we encourage women, PWDs, and youth to apply. It is part of what the values and ethos and of public service and principles of public service. So this is very important, Mr. Speaker, and therefore even men and women, and I know, you know, yesterday when the NADCO report, everybody was up in arms, especially the gender issue, because it's a moving target. How do we realize? So we find most young people, Mr. Speaker, have never that opportunity. So we need to ethnic groups, all ethnic groups, Mr. Speaker, we need to ensure that men and women, persons and disabilities. I say this with an that NCIC remove a report on the ethnic composition in the public service. And I've said some of the challenges that we face in Public Service Commission is sometimes some communities have been historically marginalized, and therefore when they apply for this position, sometimes they are not competitive enough to occupy those positions with experience. And I know most of the challenge as a young person is this. Sometimes you see a very nice advert, but right there you must have 5 years experience. Where at the moment with what we call youth boom, what happened in the 1970s in America, where we had a boom, is it a baby bloom or a baby boom? And at that time, Mr. Speaker, even in China, although China, Mr. Speaker, nowadays, people are no longer giving birth, and therefore China, I'm told the government is encouraging people to give birth. And I think China should not have a problem. They can console our good brother and our senior elder, the incoming governor of Kakamega, Senator Boni Khalwale, on how to ensure. You know, there is a joke in this country, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to Senator Khalwale, that in every exam year, Khalwale must have at least a child doing an national examination. So with all due respect, I know in our culture we don't count our children, even where I come from, and he's my neighbor, and I hope to see him as the governor. So, Mr. Speaker, upshot of what we are just saying is that the public service must be reflective. I normally see Kenyans saying so and so has not been employed because they don't come from a region. The constitution on the values of men and women, PWDs, ethnic groups, PWDs must be reflective of any organization. And I'm saying that with a mind that a number of us, I know Senator Beatrice Ogola has served as a CCM in Oman Bay County for some time. They know the biggest challenge is not the law. It is the culture we must is to comply with the law, Mr. Speaker. And I think that is what is important to this country. If we comply with the provisions of values and principles of public service, we don't need to call press conference and say community Y is more than community X or community Z is more than community A. I think this has been captured by the Constitution, and it must, Mr. Speaker, finally, on that 50th point, is that the values and principles of public service in all levels of government, both national and county. So even if you come from Bomet and you think that Bomet is homogeneity, at least you must 30%, the NCIC Act is very clear, that 30% must be non-locals. And it does not mean, I don't know, Mr. Speaker, because this has been a challenge, I don't know when a guy from your place, Kable Lartet or Kable Tundo, for example, marries a lady from Tala or somewhere in Makueni, Canton Zweni. I don't know when that lady is hired by Bomet County government, whether it reflects the 30%. Or somebody somewhere in Sirwa, somewhere in Nandi sub-county marries a lady from Soinsi Gawet or from Luanda, here in Luandete in Western Kenya. I don't know when that lady is hired by county government of Nandi, is it part of 30%? I think those are, we need clarity on that, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, when you look at these values, it is very important. We want to ask counties, even as we allocate resources to this public service, Mr. Speaker, is we must ensure there is value for our resources, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I know even, for example, in Nandi County, Mr. Speaker, we have close to almost out of billions of shillings, more than 60% goes to human resource, Mr. Speaker. We also have Mr. Speaker, I expected the minority whip to have guided, both the whips to guide the Migori senator. I'm busy moving. I cannot be interrupted while moving a bill. It is sacrosanct.
Senator Adi, what's your point of order? Senator Chiraghe, take your seat.
But I know what he wants to achieve. He wants to call quorum. Anyway, let's see you next week.
Clerk, give Senator Adi the mic, please. Proceed, Senator.
Mr. Speaker, I rise and standing order number 41. Mr. Speaker, I've been listening to the Senator for Nandi. And the things he's talking about are so important and so pertinent that I'm even wondering whether we have got enough quorum to discuss these issues. Mr. Speaker, perhaps you can advise whether we can continue listening to this wonderful presentation and passionate submission by the Senator of Nandi without a proper quorum in this House, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Indeed, Senator Adi, it's sustained that we do not have quorum for now. So I'll call upon the Sergeant at Arms to ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
The quorum bell is currently on at the Senate. That quorum bell has been necessitated by an alert from the Senator for Migori County, Senator Eddie Okech, who has stood to notify the Speaker that the House does not have the requisite quorum to continue with the proposals and the debate on the Public Service Values and Principles Amendment Bill. This is National Assembly Bills number 46 of the year 2022. This is a bill by the Senator for Onandi County, Senator Samson Cherargei, and according to the Senator for Migori County, the House needs the numbers to continue with this particular bill owing to the magnitude of the proposals in it. The Public Service Values and Principles Amendment Bill is an act of Parliament seeking to amend the Public Service Values and Principles Act to provide for the connected purposes. And to just take you through some of the purposes of this particular bill is that it seeks to amend the Public Services and Principles Act to require that all state organs in the national as well as county governments
and the state corporations do submit annual reports on details of human resource in constitutional commissions, independent offices, and the county public service boards and the county assembly service board. This report that is to be submitted by various state organs should contain details outlining the total number of employees and highlighting their gender, age, county of birth, and the county of residence. The sponsor of the bill argues that this particular move will facilitate the public service values and principles that require the public service to reflect Kenya's diverse communities, as well as afford adequate and equal opportunities for appointment of women and men, as well as members of all ethnic groups and persons with disability. And this is pursuant to Article 232 of the Constitution. Further, the bill seeks to amend Section 16 that once every year each service commission shall prepare a report on the status of the promotion of the values as well as principles of the public service. And yet again, each service commission shall submit the report prepared under subsection 1 to the President as well as Parliament and the Governor and the county assemblies, which were relevant by the 31st of December of every year. In the report pertaining the values and principles of public service, the report should contain information detailing the measures taken to promote the values and the principles of public service, as well as progress achieved in the promotion of values and principles of public service. The report should further outline the challenges faced in the promotion of values of principles of public service. Equally, the report should offer recommendations, if any, for the progressive realization of values and principles of public service, and finally provide any other matter that may be relevant to the realization of the values and the principles of public service. We await for that quorum to be attained this afternoon for the debate on this particular bill by the Senator for Nandi County, Senator Samson Cherargei, to be attained. And you can hear from the screens. The quorum bell is currently on. The Speaker has directed that the sergeant at arms during the quorum bell for 10 minutes, and this is to allow for senators to make their way into the chamber this afternoon to necessitate that quorum to be attained. Previously, there has been concerns across the country in regards to matters to do with ethnicity of various communities employed in various state agencies as well as departments across the country. And this particular bill seeks to promote matters to do with diversity in the public service. The bill aims to uphold the constitutional provisions of Article 232 and Article 10 of the Constitution, reflecting on the values and principles of matters to do with public service.
Honorable Senators, having failed to attain quorum at the expiry of 10 minutes, the Senate stands adjourned pursuant to Standing Order 41-2A until Tuesday, 27th of February 2024 at 2:30 p.m. When we assume Senator Cherargei will have a balance of 45 minutes to continue with his moving the bill.